welcome to our Biz Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Cuthbert, Creative Director at Baker Creative. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe so you can get notified when new content comes out. Please share this with anyone who could be inspired by it. Christopher Huziak is founder and chief executive officer of Final Security, a digital estate and digital legacy planning company. He earned an MBA and has more than 2 decades of experience in business, information technology, leadership, and entrepreneurship in corporate and academic and healthcare and startup settings in guiding companies and products from concept to completion. Welcome, Christopher.
Welcome, Christopher Huziak from Final Security. I so appreciate your time coming on to our podcast and sharing your information about your company and your knowledge.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for our chat today.
So your company specializes in the cleaning and transferring of digital information and the assets upon the death of the client. How did you get this idea for your company? What was the catalyst for this?
Well, it was family. And it was one of those first nights when my daughter was a newborn, when you're a zombie. I remember it like yesterday, rolling out of bed, doing that waddle walk down the hallway. And we have one of those nursing chairs in her room, the one that kind of you can hear knocking throughout the entire house. And as I'm sitting in there hoping I can get her back to sleep, I, as a new parent, just started thinking about the future. And my background's in tech and business, and started to think, is there anything, this entire digital life that I'm building, do I need to consider to make sure that my family's protected? And it was that thought that led me down the path of starting Final Security.
So when you think of the future of your child and your family, how do you feel like this concept could protect her?
Well, so we'll start with this. Did you know that it can take almost 6 months for the government, banks, and other institutions to receive and share death records? And with funeral announcements online everywhere, it's become a treasure trove for criminals. And if your digital estate and your, say, like Facebook or your computers, if they're not secure, these hackers can get in and do all types of different things, drain financial accounts, steal money from family members, and that can have a big impact on what you can leave and pass down to your family.
So if other people are interested in this business concept, can you give a little bit of an outline of, what does it mean from an individual and as a business owner perspective on the services you provide?
Well, so for individuals, it's make peace of mind. It really boils down to making sure that your digital state is accounted for and that your family and assets are protected. For business, then we have different partners from insurance industries, estate planners, end of life in general, where it's providing value and extending and supplementing their services that they already offer to their clients.
If people saw your services and they kind of were interested, but they needed to know more because they're not knowledgeable when it comes to cybersecurity, what does your service offer them?
So we have to break it down. What are they looking for too? Because there's 2 main buckets that these fall into. There's the protection part that's cybersecurity, but there's also the transferring of assets, and they provide different value. And so on the protection end of our services, we have protection from cyber crimes, financial theft, and ensuring your most important assets and files are found. For an example would be logging in, getting into your accounts afterwards. Some services have a legacy offering where you can extend it, but if they don't, like say different banks or other social services, it can be a real hassle and pain for family members to get on and try to access accounts. And with our services, with our Info Vault, it's a place where not only can you upload your important documents, files, assets, but usernames and passwords. So it avoids family members having the stress or even possible expense of having to get into these accounts, whether it's from working with the companies themselves or through probate processes.
Okay, so AARP says that at least 2,200 deceased people per day are targeted for identity theft. Mm-hmm. And there are other allied services such as funeral homes, estate planning, lawyers embracing your service as a value added on or referring to people. Do they refer people to your service? Do they see the value that you bring? Is there a way to partner?
We offer a way to partner with us, and what they're doing, and they're adding on and supplementing their offerings. So if they're in the financial industry or end of life or like it's estate planners, they come at it differently, but essentially it's modernizing their services and adding on. So not only are they getting their typical protections, but they're modernizing. So now they're covering their digital estate and legacies.
So I see a lot of articles in AARP that's about cybersecurity, but I really think this is such a big topic. It's not necessarily just for that audience, is it?
It's not, and there are different ways to look at this. Cybersecurity is just one aspect and component that our services offer. Another one is just avoiding probate. You may know someone who has a probate nightmare story with just stress and expense, and that timing is coming on when you've lost someone, and that's a very difficult and stressful and emotional time. So being able to avoid those expenses and stress is another huge value add.
Understood. So then what are the next steps for this company? What's your future plans?
Well, we're currently onboarding a number of partners where we're going to have exponential growth. We've done very well in the last 2 years, but we're about to hit milestones that I thought would take us over 5 years. So it's very exciting. And for me, our mission is to treat our members like family. I come from an Italian background, so everything that I do, that's ingrained in, and I've carried that over into the company, where knowing that the hard work that we've done is going to make a true impact helping people, that gives me the greatest satisfaction. And to know that this is new and something that's an emerging technology, and within 5 years, you're going to see this everywhere, because it is a massive gap. So whether you have planned already or are going to be future planning, and you have not considered digital, you have a massive gap in your plans, and your family and assets could be at risk.
What advice would you give to someone that's an entrepreneur that has this great idea and, but they're kind of tentative about it? What advice would you give them to launch that idea?
I've actually thought about this a lot lately. And my biggest piece of advice, so the end of life was an entirely new industry to me. And my advice to someone going into a new venture, whether you have experience in the industry or not, would be to take a deep dive into the industry, because that is going to shape so many decisions for you. And an example would be volumes. What are the monthly volumes? What are the annual volumes? Because without knowing that, and once you figure it out, it's going to determine pricing and many other things down the line in your decision-making processes. So take a deep dive into the industry.
Do you feel like there are any barriers for people to understand the whole challenge of the whole cyber threat?
I think that it's changing by the day. The landscape is changing. COVID has changed so many things. And I think people's acceptance to new ideas are changing with it. And every day in the news, you're hearing about new attacks and data breaches and everything else. It's becoming such a mainstay in our society that people who don't even want to consider it are giving it more thought.
Yeah.
And it has real implications to everyone, no matter where you are in life.
So the various components of everyone's digital footprint, whether it's a company or whether it's an individual, what part of that are people not really thinking is part of the mix of that? What are people missing when it comes to protecting themselves?
Well, that it's everywhere. And even when you think that you're not, like when you're sleeping, you're still generating a digital footprint. Your phone and other devices are doing things all the time, whether you know it or not. So your digital footprint is growing exponentially. And as we are more connected and more devices in the house with Bluetooth, smart fridges and all these different things, we're all exponentially increasing our footprint. And whether we are intentionally doing it or not, the risk is growing with it.
What kind of tips would you offer to someone who is interested in this service, and what could they do to protect themselves from a threat, from an attack?
So on our site, we actually have a digital estate planning tracker that can help guide the different steps that you need to do. But for example, just take inventory. Let's start with social. How many different social sites do you have? Are you using password managers to manage them, or do you have the same password and email for everything? Because that's a big one. For example, your banking, your email address you use for your bank should not be the same that you have on to get into your email, to get into your socials. Mm-hmm. Because when one gets compromised and they're all the same, the hackers and other cyber criminals just have a script that go through and will start traversing the different sites. And if you have weak passwords, That's one way they can get in quickly to all your different resources and assets.
So what obstacles did you run across when you first started your business?
Well, we touched on earlier that I was new to the industry, and I learned that end of life, it's not a fun conversation. People don't like to talk about it, and recognizing that was, and learning that was a big hurdle, but it doesn't take away the importance of it. So crafting conversation starters of, I think coming from a point of being authentic and just direct going into it matters. So it was just, how do you reach people and talk to them in a way that they're going to be receptive to this important topic?
Absolutely. How does your company protect even the designated beneficiary from seeing information the client didn't want anyone to see?
Members of our service have the ability, you're choosing what you put online or what you're putting into the account. So we're not automatically grabbing anything. Everything that you put in, you have pre-selected. And the beneficiary does not get access to any of the information until confirmation of passing. And we have a multi-tier step process that goes through to make sure that the member is actually deceased. So that information will not accidentally open up or be shown to them before the appropriate time.
Now, is this service available all over the world, or is it just United States, or?
We're US based right now, but we are working on internationalizing.
Okay.
There's a lot of challenges with GDPR, and while we are compliant GDPR, there's different regulations per country that add complexity to going international with a service like this.
Do you feel like there's a lot of competition in your space, or do you feel like you're an innovator in it?
Well, there are a few people doing a small portion of what we offer, but we're the only complete digital estate planning solution. It is a new industry, and we have our full patent applications, which we feel really strong that we're going to be able to lock down many of the key components in operating in this space. So we are going to become the standard in this new industry.
With a lot of business owners and executives that watch our podcast, what kind of advice would you offer that's integrated with your services? Like whether someone wants to do, leave their company to somebody else, or they are interested in, trying to do some sort of setup so when they pass. Is there any type of advice or services that you offer with what you have right now?
Well, we're a turnkey solution, and we cater to all the different needs of our clients. And we have 3 main integration options. Just our whole focus is removing friction, whether it's from a B2C or B2B. We have a full automation. So if you have an IT staff, we can integrate both systems where everything is just fluid and operates in real time. We have what we started was our digital agent program, where you or someone in your office could go in and register as our digital agent. And essentially you have a portal where you can track all your sales in real time, and you have an agent code, and all you have to do is provide that to your client. Makes it a very easy way to operate. But we work with some also smaller funeral homes where they don't have either of those or want to operate either of those. And we can even do just a spreadsheet import.
So could someone integrate your services with succession planning as far as from a business planning perspective?
Absolutely. Our services can extend to satisfy the needs of those clients as well.
And so then as far as the security of the services that you offer, what do you have in place?
It's end-to-end encryption. So bank level encryption, there's a couple different ways that we can say it, but when you're typing on your computer, all the information that you're putting through across the internet into our servers, application, and even the data when it's just sitting on the servers is encrypted the entire time at multiple levels.
Okay, and you can you could have one person have access, or like you said, you could assign it to someone else. It's whatever that person's comfortable with.
That's correct. So you have complete control of what information that you put into the system, and that information is not given until confirmation of your passing.
And the top 2 concerns that your customers usually have when they are interested in your service, what are they?
Well, the first one they want to know, since we've been around only 2.5 years, if we sign up with your service, how are you going to know that you're going to be around in 10 years? Well, if from a business perspective, we operate on a very lean model, very low overhead. We have a runway of a lifetime if needed. And the other one is the security aspect. How do we know that your information is safe? We conduct internal and external audits. my background and some of our team come from the healthcare environment where we're going against HIPAA standards and also higher ones such as high trust. So we bring a lifetime of experience coming into final security to make sure that your data and the security of your data is our highest priority.
So with this concept, and you mentioned your family and everything, what kind of legacy would you like to leave?
That's a great question. I just want to know that my family's taken care of. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing to me. I touched upon earlier that it's ingrained in me being of Italian descent. I just want to make sure that I'm giving the best life I can to my family, and knowing that when I'm gone, I've done everything that I can do to make sure they're taken care of. And I feel that many of our members and people who come join the Final Security family feel the same way, that they care about their family and they want to do everything they can within their power to make sure that they are protected, especially once they're gone.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on our podcast. It's been really interesting learning about your business and the offerings and why you came up with this concept originally. I think a lot of people can learn from it and look at some other options.
Thank you.
If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe so you can get notified when new content comes out. Please share this with anyone who could be inspired by it, and feel free to post any questions so we can be inspired by new content. Thanks for listening. If you're interested in learning more, visit our website at bakercreative.co.